Phil, how did they do it years ago with no fully automatic timing?
That's right, and they had all those tongue depressors ready to hand out. You're first, you take number one, right?
That's right, and those old
back in my
stopwatches,
day.
you know?
That's right, you had
I lived in the
it
1900s.
takes a village. Yeah, it takes a village. You had 10 people standing on little steps at the finish line. I got first, you take second. Put 2 watches on first. All right, speaking of the all-time greats, Jackie Joyner-Kersee, 12.81 seconds. That is the stadium record going back all the way to 1990. When she was running for the Golden Arches McDonald.
I'm a huge JJK fan. She's from East St. Louis, so right over the river from where I grew up, right? And she's an absolute legend everywhere, certainly in the track and field world, but in St. Louis, in that area, she still gives back to the community. She's at all sorts of events, always fighting for St. Louis, to bring events to St. Louis, working with the sports commission there. She's an amazing person.
All right, and a clean start and a good one in 2. That's Sydney Gibson from Southern Utah, but now the lead goes to Megan Zanow from Wayne State out of Michigan. And in 8, Ashley Laguno up against the stadium, and it looks like she might have been the first one to the line from UT Rio Grande Valley. Now it is Zanow from Wayne State. Once again, going down to 0.3 of a second, or excuse me, third decimal point, again by 200ths or thousandths, excuse me, of a second, both in 14:41.
They're making you work on your decimals, Phil.
Yeah, they are. And I remember back when the FAT system started, there was actually a Polaroid photograph. They had to shake in the air a couple times to get the image to settle in. Oh, did not see that. Wow, on the outside. That was a hard fall.
I heard that. Yeah, the crowd gave quite an ooh when that happened.
All right, actually that was teammates in both from Wayne State, Michigan. So Ben, real quickly, one of the things I wanted to ask you about is Megan Zanow, again by 0.002 of a second, the Wayne Staters, talking to their coach. Was the improvements both in training philosophy, in diet, in obviously shoe technique and tracks. I've had numerous conversations with one of the early greats in the mile. I think he was the 25th American ever under 4 minutes. He had his main rival in the day is one named Jim Ryan, so he ran against some of the best. But what do you see as maybe the greatest technological or training improvement in recent years has really taken track to the next level?
Well, this conversation might take a while, but if you're making me say one thing specifically technological advantage, I would certainly say the shoe technology is a huge difference. I think it's making giant. It's so. There's such a trickle-down effect because not only are you racing faster, but you're training better, you're recovering faster. There's this accumulation that happens, and that's a huge reason why you're seeing such fast times today. But there's a lot more as well.
All right, heat number 4, women's 100 hurdles. That's the lineup. One open lane in 7, a good start in 2. That's Graham from Southern Utah. Now it's pretty even over hurdle 4, hurdle 5. Inside in 1, DeGroat from Central Washington. Out in 5, that is Newsom from Fresno State. It is Newsom, 14:55 into a massive headwind, 3.1 meters per second. Wow, the wind kicked up in the valley as she wins by 0.13 of a second. And Ben, getting back to that question, just about, let's say, the monitoring of the human body and its response to training and races, that also is a massive improvement, whether it's wearable technology or just otherwise.
Yeah, the technology, I think, the data, the fact that people are treating the sport in a scientific way, to your point, and analyzing things in a way that I don't think they did before. It was a really kind of a gut feel sort of approach for decades, and many of the best coaches, that was their way of doing things, observing the athletes, using their intuition in terms of what they needed and what type of workouts they needed to do. And now it's so much more advanced because we have heart rate monitors, we have blood lactate meters, we have obviously plenty of video. We have all these things that we can use to make sure we're getting better and make sure we're doing what we need to do, not only in training but also during the recovery phase, between workouts. It's just, it's a revolution, and I think it really started, I would say, in the neighborhood of 8 to 10 years ago, and it's not stopping anytime soon.
All right, heat number 5, the lineup. Some Division II schools, D1s as well, and NAIA. 100 meters, 33-inch barriers, 10 of those between the start and the finish. And we are underway out in lane 5. That is Sierra Nelson. She knows this track well, but in 4, Lillian Wanzek from Minnesota Duluth. And then 1, Michaela Strong from Tiffin, Ohio is going to be your winner. The junior, her time 14:43, wins by 37 hundredths. Again, a headwind, this time 2.1 meters per second to slow up the Dragon hurdler. And the full numbers in section number 5 of 6. And I know lane 8 recently hadn't been kind to the hurdlers. We saw a couple athletes DNF because of major contact with the barriers. This race, not too bad. And now in lane 2, actually, a DNF because get out of sync after hitting these 33-inch hurdlers. But Strong in lane 1 from Tiffin with the win.
Well, I started to mention earlier the wind, but it is difficult in the hurdles, right? Because you do have to adjust a little bit for the wind. When you're running as fast as these athletes are running, a headwind versus a tailwind makes a difference. And when it's whipping like this and swirling, and 1 second you're in the start blocks and you think you're going to have a tailwind, and then all of a sudden it's a headwind, that can really throw you off.
Absolutely. I know, like in field events where a tailwind, especially in the pole vault where it isn't measured as wind aided, like maybe in the long jump or triple jump, you're going to wait for that wind to feel it at your back. Well, otherwise, if it's hitting you in the face, it's like, oh, well, let me wait for a calm and I'll go. With a race, you don't have that advantage. The starter is going to tell you when to get in the blocks and go.
That's exactly right. Yeah, I think about it. It's almost like a golfer, right? You know, he or she stands over a shot, and you watch them and they're waiting for the wind to do a certain thing because it's going to affect their golf ball. It's the same way, certainly with the pole vault, as you mentioned. I mean, you're up in the air, so the wind has a lot of the wind's going to be a major factor in your jump. And so, yeah, they want a tailwind in the pole vault. Of course, you want a tailwind in the hurdles as well if you can get it. But again, this wind is a little bit difficult to predict during the day. Now, it calms down at night here, but it swirls a little bit during the day.
That's like a 6 o'clock alarm, I believe the locals say, and the wind dies down. All right, section 6, final group for the ladies. That's right, 100 hurdles. Clean start. And out in lane 5, that is Sophia Boyd from Hawaii. The Rainbows coming to the mainland. And she's going to like this result, as she runs away with it 15.07 seconds once again into a headwind. And again, the opportunity to run in front of great fans, knowledgeable fans, and also the exposure of being here on FloTrack and Mile Split adds to the wonderful experience. For Sophia Boyd, gets the win as we take a look from hurdle 3 on. Form looking good. And taking a look back through these 6 heats of the women's 100-meter hurdles. And our top 10 finishers as they will now move the hurdles around the track. Dior Williams from UT Rio Grande Valley, 13:39, wins it by almost 0.2 of a second. And our next event, as I mentioned, the 400 hurdles coming up in about 25 minutes. Live coverage of this year's Bryan Clay Invitational on FloTrack. And welcome back as we transition from the straightaway hurdles to the 400-meter hurdles of the 2026 Bryan Clay Invitational at Azusa Pacific University in Azusa, California. They call it Canyon City, right there, the San Gabriel Mountains. One of the stops on the World Athletics Continental Tour, the Challenger Series, as Ben and I have discussed the importance of raising that level of significance of some of these collegiate meets where athletes are right on par with some of these competitors in Europe and around the world. Looking back at the 36-inch barriers in place for the 400-meter hurdles. And we're just a couple moments away from the start of the 400 hurdles. Ever do either the steeplechase or the 400 hurdles, Ben?
Phil, I call the steeplechase the worst 10 minutes and 26 seconds of my life. One and done. One and done. Tried it once, freshman year. That was it.
That's what I was too. Freshman year, I did it at a good D2 school you may know, Slippery Rock University in Western PA.
Oh, of course.
If I remember right, the meet temperature was about 35 degrees, and I believe there was a film on the water where it was just almost frozen, but it was brutal.
That sounds about like a D2 spring track meet in the Northeast.
All right, there's our lineup, section number 1 of 6 for the men's 400-meter hurdles. And as Ben and I talked about earlier in the conversation, in my mind, for the toughest event on the oval 400 hurdles, Edwin Moses, the all-time great from the Buckeye State, turned this into an art form, 13 strides between hurdles. And speaking of an Ohioan, Tiffin's Jordan Kortner in lane 6, out there in front, as is Jordan Kortner. Excuse me, in lane 8, my bad. Michael Hendricks from Wisconsin Parkside in 6. The precision, Ben, of these hurdles, again, 13 strides between hurdles, hitting with that same lead leg for those at the top of this game is really an art form.
Yeah, I like that word, art form. I think it's a beautiful race to watch.
As Jordan Kortner up against the rail, 50.24 seconds, gets the win. And James Kerr from the Thunderbirds of the NAIA ranks also under 51 seconds, 50.95. The meet record, 50.05, so Mr. Kortner not far off that at all. LaRon Bennett in 2008, he gets a big congratulatory hug from the coaching staff from Tiffin U.
Yeah, our argument earlier, Phil, not argument, but our debate was what's the hardest race on the track, the 400 hurdles or the 800 or the open 4. And I said the 800, and I believe you said the 800, but I would say that the 400 hurdles, when done right, is the most beautiful race on the track. Edwin Moses, Sidney McLaughlin-Levrone, the best in the world, right? When they're on their game, that race is an absolute Picasso. It's a work of art watching them run Femke Bol, right? Because they're running so fast and losing no momentum, jumping over these huge hurdles. It's really, I think it's why some of those athletes sort of transcended the sport and became global superstars, Sydney and Femke being global superstars right now as we speak, because that particular event really appeals to people.
Oh, indeed, and everybody in the stadium can see it developing in front of them rather than the other highlights where the flash bulbs go off, the 100 meters or something like that, that they can say, wow, look at this, and follow the progression as they go through hurdles 1 through 10.
Yeah, because you're just looking at who jumps first, right? You know who's winning by who hits the hurdle first, and that does make it an easy race to watch, because sometimes with the stagger, it can be a little bit difficult.
All right, heat number 2 of 6 for the men. And that is Max Franklin from Azusa Pacific in lane number 4. And we'll just see how smooth his approach is to the hurdles, eliminating those stutter steps. So important, and he is cranking through these barriers. Right on target, right lead leg. And right when I said that, I jinxed him. He hit with the left. Max Franklin from Azusa Pacific. And these heavy legs start to reach right about now with 2 hurdles to go. They come to the final straightaway. Hurdle 9, Franklin relinquished back to the number 2 spot. Josh Bose from Central Washington. Heavy legs, a long run out. And on the outside in 8, Aiden Hecht. And in the middle, actually, it is Tegan Malcolm from Colorado in 7, 51-58. I've checked that it's corrected to Josh Bose from Central Washington. All right, now we're going to get this straight. Aiden Hecht, the winner, out in
there
lane 8.
There we go, Phil. They were testing you.
That's right. They had the wrong tongue depressor. Here we go. Now I got the wrong one. All right.
No, that was a good race. A lot of back and forth.
So tell me, looking ahead, what are some of the highlights as you... Whoops, sorry.
No, I didn't mean to cut you off. In the 400 hurdles, quickly, I'll just say that we were talking about this in the 110s and the 100 hurdles, but focusing on what you're doing. It's difficult, right? It's really difficult in the 400 hurdles. It's such a, you want to kind of take a peek, see what that person in the lane to your right is doing, and you're trying to catch them and you're trying to make up the stagger, but you can't risk falling out of your rhythm. And I think you saw that in the last heat where people started stutter stepping and hitting hurdles, and that can be sometimes a result of not being laser focused on what you need to do.
Absolutely, and whether it's a cliche or they actually are very truthful, athletes in post-race or post-meet interviews talk about, I was focusing on myself. I wasn't worried about the other runners or athletes in the competition.
Yeah, I don't know how truthful they are when they say that. If they ran well, they probably are being truthful.
And one of our athletes not using blocks, but down in a 3-point stance out in lane 7, Kevin Barakahoff from Hope. And wow, look at that stride and smooth form over the hurdles. 36-inch barriers, and he is right on those. Looks like a high hurdler out in lane 7, representing D3 Hope. And definitely chopped his stride on that one. Had to change the lead leg. That's right, Ben. And hits the next hurdle, hurdle number 8. Back to good form, but it's Danny Jansen from Northwest Missouri on the outside. Takes the lead in the final 80, and he is the first to hit the finish line. The junior from Northwest Missouri, 51-51. Receiving congratulations from his teammate Aiden O'Leary. Ben, I had started asking you before the future for you and the marathon project. What are the big milestones coming up?
Thanks. Yeah, we made a big announcement this week, and what we're doing is we're going to combine our 2 races. And so what that means for the competitors is more energy, more people, more hype, more fun. We had 2 races last year when we brought this thing back. There was an amateur race on Saturday and a pro race on Sunday, and both went off without a hitch, and they were great. And you know, there was nothing wrong with that format. But what we found talking to the athletes in that amateur race, the Gold Wave we called it, was that they loved being treated like a pro, getting their personal bottles, having an indoor warm-up area, having pacers, having bag drop right at the start-finish. And so it sort of began this process of us thinking about, okay, how can we make it even more of a pro experience for them? And the answer kind of became pretty clear to us, which was, hey, let's have them race with the pros. And that's what we're going to do. So now it's going to be one 400-person race on Saturday, and we're bringing all that energy from both days, and we're putting it all in this, you know, 3.5-hour time span on this loop course with tons of fans, and we think the energy is going to be really, really good.
Wow, that sounds great. All right, as we prepare for heat number 4 of 6, the time to beat still Jordan Kortner's 50.24, the young man from Tiffin, Ohio. And a clean start for the field, a good one in 6. Luke Mullinox from Paradise Valley kind of chopped his stride a little bit in that one. The field able to catch up to him. And in lane 4, Tyler Myrup from Southern Utah. Right in the middle of your screen, headed in your direction. Into the turn, up by about 8. Oh, he nailed that one and goes down, but gets up quickly. And that is the competitive nature. Oh, no, he goes down again, and he is not giving up on this event. And in lane 6, Molyneux, the new leader. Wow. And the run to the line, Cameron McLeod from Tufts out in the Northeast. And Division 3, and at the line, I think it's going to be McLeod with the win. Yep, Molyneux by 500ths, but Ben, we could talk for a half an hour about that one. Just the gutsiness of Tyler Myrup not to give up. Finished in 60 seconds, but if you just look at the results, that's not going to tell the story whatsoever of what that young man did.
I honestly do not know, in my 30-plus years of watching track and field, if I've ever seen someone fall twice in the 400 hurdles and still finish. So you've got to give it to him, and in 60 seconds. So if anyone knows how it feels to run a 60-second quarter, imagine doing it over hurdles, falling twice along the way. Pretty impressive.
Unbelievable. He did the barrel roll, and he got back up. Here it is, leading the race. Hammers that one, really never got that lead leg up on his feet, back in his lane. And just sadly knocked it again, but again, he gets the MVP award of today so far from what I've seen. Just did not give up.
He gets the resilience award, doesn't he?
Wow. That is a guy you want on the 4x4 too. When you talked about conference championships, a meet on the line by 2 points, he's going to give it all.
Yeah, give him the baton, no hurdles in the way. That kind of willpower, I like his chances.
All right, heat number 5, the lineup. One more after this one. So, Ben, did you tag this new, whoops. Yeah, the mix of schools
Phil, I was
here.
just going to say, I love the variety of schools. Yeah, we talked about that earlier. And when you look, they were just from all over the country. D1, D2, D3, really, really fun environment at this meet, because these kids have looked forward to this meet all year, and you feel that here in the stadium.
And you know, when they arrived and the weather forecast was picture perfect, you said, all right, let's go out there. Coaches also getting in there. Come on, guys. We came to California to run fast, get ready for conference, get ready for nationals. This is where you do it.
We didn't come all this way for nothing.
All right, once again, a little separation between the competitors in lane 2. That is Jack Koppel-Sloan from UMary. And then the rest of the field in 4 through 8. Heat number 5, men's 400-meter hurdles. Kortner from Tiffin, still the leader. And we are underway. And a really quick start out of lane 4. That is Jude Halling from Redlands. Things are tightening up. Still the first one over that hurdle going into the turn. And here is where everything just went crazy in that previous heat. But Halling, a sophomore from Redlands, still in front. Using that right lead leg. Once again, off the turn. One more hurdle in front of him, and then the big run out. And he takes this one wire to wire. Jude Halling from Redlands. .75. So Ben, you were talking about that new format for the marathon project. Did you label it or brand it the pro experience for these athletes? Again, bringing everybody together in one race, 400 runners.
Yeah, we're kind of using a little double phrase where we say get treated like a pro and run with the pros. And last year it was get treated like a pro, and this year you get to run with them as well. And really spend the whole weekend with them. Everybody's at the same hotel. It's the Sheraton Grand at Wild Horse Pass. It's a resort hotel, beautiful facility, beautiful venue, half mile from the start-finish area. We're actually going to do the expo there at the hotel this year outside in the afternoon when it's nice on Friday, the day before the race. And so, you'll be mingling with the pros there. We'll do the pro athlete press conference there at the hotel, some meet and greet, some autograph sessions. And then after the race, everybody sort of heads back to the hotel, and the pool becomes a post-race party. And so, soup to nuts, start to finish. It's a pro experience, unlike any other. Where if you're a 3-hour marathoner, you're literally mingling, warming up, competing, and then hanging out with the pros all week long or all weekend long. And we have had some amazing pros at the Marathon Project. Our course record holder is Sarah Hall, who I think most people know. She ran 2:20.32 there in 2020. And then on the men's side, Martin Heher ran 2:08.59 in 2020 as well.
Well, I know my mileage isn't up to marathon standards yet, but that sounds like a great thing to take in.
Can always come volunteer, Phil.
All right. Heat number 6, last one, the men's 400 hurdles. We are underway. And out like a shot in lane 5. Matthew Hayes from Southern Utah. He is not waiting for anybody. Attacking those barriers. Right lead leg. Into the turn. The junior from Southern Utah. Maybe we'll see him in the 400 by 4 later. He's got the 200 in between. Oh, he kind of chopped the stride there, but still well out in front. He's got 10 meters on the field. Takes a good look at hurdle 9. Nice smooth clearance. Matthew Hayes from Southern Utah is gonna get there first. 54.71, wins by 3/10 over Crusoe Buzzard from Westmont, who definitely made it interesting at the end. And we'll make a hurdle adjustment after we take a look at our top 10. I'm taking a guess from these 6 men's heats. And another look back at the attacking style of the young man from Southern Utah. And that can be a long, lonely run out. And our top finishers again from those 6 heats of the men's 400 hurdles. There they are. Jordan Kortner from Tiffin, 50-24, wins by 7/10 of a second over NAIA British Columbia's James Kerr. And we will head out to a commercial. Coming on back, they'll lower the hurdles to 30 inches. It's the women's 400 hurdles live on FloTrack in 10. Our upcoming event schedule on FloTrack is jam-packed. Next weekend, we are in the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, for the 130th running of the Penn Relays, celebrating with America 250, the 23rd, 24th, and 25th of April. The London Marathon to follow next Sunday. And then the Frentzen Last Chance out here in California on May 7th. Then Diamond League, Continental Tour, Sound Running, Running Lane action, and then wrapping up the month of May with the Cape Town Marathon. A full month plus live on FloTrack as we switch gears back to the 400-meter hurdles, this time for the women at this year's Bryan Clay Invitational, section 1 of 6. The facility record, one of the best the U.S. has ever had, Lashinda Demas back in 2013, 55:02. That is the leading mark. Sarah Wells from Toronto has the Bryan Clay Invitational record the same year at 56:35. And a clean start for the field, all 8 lanes filled. The 10-30-inch barriers, the obstacles. As Sydney Smith from Kansas is lighting them up in lane 4. Get a close-up look at her, a little bit of stutter step going into that one. And right next to her in lane 5 is Haley Martin from NAIA's British Columbia. So D1 versus NAIA side by side. You don't see this come championship season, but right now at Bryan Clay, they are matched up. A Power 4 conference athlete with an NAIA runner from Canada. What a storyline. Last hurdle, the long run out. Smith and Martin to the line. It is Sydney Smith from Kansas. 58.79. Haley Martin, 1600ths of a second back. Well, Ben, we've hit upon that subject several times, the meeting of these different levels of collegiate competition. It is worth the price of admission.
Yeah, I mean, KU's an incredible D1 program, fantastic hurdlers. We've seen a few of them today, but then she's lined up against people from the D2 level and the D3 level and the NAIA level, and I think that is something that clearly makes track and field different, or separates track and field from pretty much every other sport at the NCAA level, and I think that inclusivity is a good thing.
100%. All right, heat number 2. The number again they'll be shooting for, 58.79 by Sydney Smith, the junior from Kansas.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I have you down for the start of the end?
The collegiate lead in 2026, Kayla Garrett from South Carolina, 54.22 down at the Florida Relays. And she leads the country by 1.15 seconds, as a total of 9 runners have broken 56 thus far in 2026.
On your marks.
And we're underway with heat number 2. Out in lane 5, Ellie DeGroat from Central Washington. Finished 19th in the 100 hurdles at 14.68. So moving the hurdles down 30 inches might be a welcome sight, but the extra fatigue from the 400 makes those 30-inch barriers look like mountains. Out in lane 6, Soleil Gray from Northwestern State leads by about 5 meters, looking strong coming into the final 100 meters. And they're side by side to her left, DeGrotte and Tejan from Northwest Missouri, the run out. The big challenge, but it is wire to wire by Soleil Gray from Northwestern State out of Louisiana. 59.31. Ben, it is never easy to lead from the start, but especially with the stagger situation, you're sitting out there in lane 6, you're only seeing a couple people in the field. It really can make it a kind of a scary moment at times.
Yeah, you're the hunted, not the hunter, when you're out there in those outside lanes and the hurdles. But, you know, some people like that. Some people like to feel almost like they're running scared, and they don't mind that feeling of holding people off. And then others like to see what's in front of them and chase people down. It can be a bit of a personal preference.
So were you a chaser or a chasee most of the time?
Well, I just wasn't very good. No, I mean, given the opportunity, I suppose I would rather sit if I could. But you know, you don't always get the choice, do you?
Nope, that is true. So Ms. Gray moves into the number 3 spot with that heat number 2 victory as we see the lineup for our 3rd section in the 400 hurdles.
I'll tell you, that's not an easy double to come back from those 100 hurdles. That was just over an hour ago. So they had about 70 minutes and they were at it again in the 400 hurdles. So all those young women who doubled back, that's a tough day.
And this is something that coaches use to prep them for the conference environment, correct?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's 2 things. I think it's getting ready for conference where you're going to have to run a lot of races over a 2-day period. And I also think it's just taking advantage of being out here in California in the good weather. A lot of these schools are coming from places where it's still pretty cold and nasty. And hey, if you're going to come all the way out here, you might as well run a couple of different races.
The start preparation for Belle Lindsay from Washita Baptist, running out of lane 3. And out in lane 5, that is Sydney Gibson from Southern Utah. Those Southern Utah hurdlers in the middle of the track. They've had some success thus far today. And just to her right is Ari Lejeune from Western Washington. Let's see who can maintain their form going through these final hurdles. And the Western Washington sophomore has about a 6-meter advantage on the field. Lindsay out of 3 trying to close, but unless there's a problem at the last hurdle, she is going to run for 2nd or 3rd. As Najouin gets the win from Western Washington. 59.79 for the winning time in heat number 3.
Yeah, that might be Ari. Oh, it's tough to say that last name. It might be actually Win.
Win?
I knew yeah. It's a difficult one to say. When you have all these names, whew, it is a challenge, isn't it?
Yes, it is, but good form over that hurdle headed into the final turn. And the last long run out in the 400 hurdles. And Speaking of names, during the break, we were mentioning and talking about the 1,500 races coming up this evening. The featured races, obviously, on Saturday. And two names that, Ben, you could hit us with it real quick, and we'll talk more about them later. One in the men's and one in the women's side that could be the marquee individuals in those metric miles.
Sure, this is sort of the metric mile mecca, isn't it? But I think that we're going to be looking at Colin Sullivan from NAU again in the 1,500. He won the 800 yesterday in a scintillating 1:44 and looked good doing it, looked really good doing it. So he'll be doubling back today in the 1,500. I would look for him to be sort of our featured athlete in the men's 1,500, although he's got plenty of people to challenge him. And then in the women's 1,500, I think Shelby Houlihan, although she did some pacing duties earlier in the meet, so we're not 100% sure that she's all out racing, but we think she is, and she'll be up against a really good field of collegiate women that includes our defending champ from last year, as well as Chloe Forrester from Washington and others, Val Constein, a two-time Olympian. So really good field, both the men's and women's 1,500s coming up tonight.
So you mentioned this is Mile Mecca, but Mile U from UW, where they just keep cranking out sub-4 men and 420 and 430 women, it seems.
It is.
Right.
It is. They do not mess around at UW.
All right, heat number 4 of the women's 400 hurdles.
On your marks.
Called to the blocks. And we are rocking and rolling in heat number 4. First hurdle, everybody up safely over. On the outside in 6 and 7, Hope Clam from Park U and Savannah Dutton from San Jose State. And add in Bernadette Belzer from UMary into that mix as the lead trio coming down to the last turn. A little stutter step by Dutton, but San Jose State hasn't really affected her much. She is our leader coming into the home stretch, but now on the inside in lane 2, Emma O'Neill from Fresno Pacific. And in 4, Julia De Palma from Bradley. The red and white clad Brave gets the win. 61.09 out of section number 4.
Phil, that's an example of someone coming from central Illinois, where Bradley's located, and taking advantage of the weather in California.
Absolutely. It still occasionally, I know in western PA where I live, it can be winter-like in late April. That's why my wife was telling me the other day not to plant the flowers until Mother's Day or something like that.
Well, it's funny in the United States, right? Because we're sort of forced to have our track season be in the spring because of the nature of the school calendar. But if you really think about track and field, it really should be a summer sport. It's a summer sport in Europe. But for much of this country, we force it to be in the spring when the weather's really not that great. And so, as we've been saying all broadcast long, whether it's Bradley or you know, schools in the Northeast, all over the Midwest, even schools from Washington, they're coming down, and they're just coming here to set PRs because they just simply can't do it where they are because of the weather.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're absolutely right. As youth track and field competitors, it was a summer series of events. I know in the high school scene in Pennsylvania, the first meet was March 13th, which was very early and still very winter-like.
Yes, you mentioned earlier a steeplechase with just a thin film of ice in the steeple pit, and I remember those days. It was very difficult in the Midwest to be racing in March and even early April. Right as it got good, the season was ending.
All right, heat number 5 of 6. That is Lillian Brewer from Point Loma. Concentration, the focus, waiting for the starter's commands. And we are underway. Lanes 2 through 8. Looking back through the field, lane 7, that is Anna Tisch from U-Mary. Back in 5, Adriana Gray from Wichita Baptist. And now in 2, Talina Legier from UT Rio Grande Valley. She is going to have a noticeable advantage coming into the final couple hurdles and the straightaway run. A little stutter step on that one did not affect her at all. She's up by more than 10 meters over the next to last hurdle. Hurdle number 10, 30-inch barrier. And the UT Rio Grande Valley athlete headed to a big win, under 60 seconds in the 400 hurdles. And we saw some great things from that team yesterday in the middle distance and distance events, and it shows they can pick them up and put them down in the 400 hurdles. She celebrates. Now, when you speak of weather, Ben, Texas, I know they're sort of one season as FloTrack and FloSports headquarters in Austin. It seems like it's always summer down there, isn't it?
It feels always hot and humid, that's for sure, but Texas is a big state, and depending where you're at, you can get some wind in the spring. That is for sure. I would say that's the challenge in Texas with track in the spring, is the wind.
And I have noticed some very windy 100-meter times from some of the high schoolers. Not to say they aren't fast, but when I'm seeing like 9.8 from a high schooler, I'm like, wow. What was the wind reading? 5.6, 4.1. It can be windy. All right, our sixth and final section. That mixed D2 Division I NAIA on the track, as we will get ready to move to the half lap 200 meters and bring in the last member of our broadcast team, Carson Gambaro, at the start of the 200s. The number to beat is still 58.79 seconds by Sydney Smith in winning heat number 1 over Haley Martin. Those two the only ones under 59 seconds. And Legier, our winner of our last heat, is now number 5 with her 59.47.
On your mark.